Hello and welcome to the Sweeney Show Business and Law Podcast. Joining me here today is DC Cahalane of Republic Work. DC, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Dave.
If you want to, suppose, tell our audience a bit about yourself, maybe your personal story, and about the wonderful location of Republic Work where we are here today.
I don't know, my personal story, there's lots of dodgy elements there, so
I'll give us the edited version.
There might be too many lawyers.
Give us the PG version.
So I'm originally from West Cork, went to UCC, did computer science and economics, came out of UCC and worked in a very interesting trade. I worked in corporate event management for about 7 years, so we would have done things like the MTV Awards the year they came to Dublin, a lot of corporate events, in particular actually a lot of, which kind of got relevant to the whole startup thing, a lot of launches. Like we would have done the launch of the Four Seasons Hotel in Dublin, the Westin Hotel in Dublin. So I guess like way back then, that's when the whole kind of, I suppose that I never had any formal training in marketing, but I think that's probably where that interest came in. How do you take something that nobody knows about, and how do you kind of get it out there?
Back then, was the MTV in Ireland about 97?
But 90, I think it was late 90. I think it was November 97.
Yeah.
But like that,
that was kind of before internet and before Instagram.
It was before
Facebook,
a lot of stuff. I mean, we were still on the Nokia 6110s, I think. And you had what people don't remember now, because now you go to everywhere in Ireland and there's Hilton hotels and all that. Sure. But like we didn't have any of those. Like all of the hotel chains, like the biggest hotel chain in the country was Jury's Doyle Hotels.
Okay.
It was like that was the first of these big international brands coming in, and like that had a big effect on Ireland in general, because even though we always had international brands, we always had Coca-Cola and Red Bull and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a different thing when you're seeing these big international brands coming in and having their names on the side of buildings, and at the same time, you're seeing the Googles and the Microsofts and all those guys come to Ireland for the first time.
Sure.
So like Dublin was a very interesting place at the time. But of course, like me being from fucking West Cork, having made the big move to Cork, having made the big move from Cork to Dublin, I had notions, so I headed off to London, and I went from London to Chicago, and I went to San Francisco, Miami.
Because I know you're huge involved in the tech industry.
This was actually, the funny thing about this is an awful lot of this was prior to tech. An awful lot of this was actually, I went from, I guess because when you're working in the events business, you end up interacting with an awful lot of hospitality businesses, because you're booking events into hotels and booking people and all that. So I ended up working with, first of all, with Jury's Doyle Hotels for a while, in their kind of special event side of things. So very much, I guess I got into a space kind of back of house. I never kind of had that experience of working, for any long period of time in the front of house part of hotels. And I ended up actually, my very, very first business was when I got out of working for hotel groups, I basically set myself up as a consultant.
Okay.
And I used to work on the projects like hotel groups that wanted to design a new hotel brand. Here's the group we want to attract, how are we going to do it?
Wow.
So it was kind of tied back again almost to that whole launch thing. We want to do something in this space, and we want it to be attractive and get attention. Sure. And this was all, of course, great in the boom times, and then suddenly every hotel chain in the world stopped doing pretty much everything, and I got lucky in that I kind of transitioned from I was always a nerd growing up. My dad was an architect, so we always had high-powered computers. Like my dad would have been one of the first people around ever, I suppose, to draw houses on computer, as opposed to the old tracing paper way. But so I got lucky in that I kind of caught that tech trend just as it was kicking off here in Ireland. And when I came back to, I was in Dublin for a little bit. I came back to Cork,
so
and I went to work for
Trustev. Kind of the early 2000s, or
up to early kind of 2000s and stuff. We're probably I mean, what are we now? 2017. Like we're probably back actually 2010. That sort of time. I spent a long time working for myself and working in that kind of hospitality space.
Yeah, so
Trustev.
You just mentioned the company there, Trustev. Like what a behemoth that is, and we know
so that
feeling is involved here in Republic Work as well. And what is the Trustev story, I suppose?
The Trustev story was an amazing one, because it was. I met Pat Phelan because when I came back here, it connects into Republic Work in that I had seen these sort of spaces overseas, places where now they were very much for technology people or artistic people.
Maybe we should just explain what exactly is Republic Work, and we're kind of jump.
Yeah,
we're kind of back into the past feeling.
So
here we are today in Republic Work. I'm in the lounge facility here. So what is it?
Republic of Work, like we start by calling it an innovation hub, all right? But I mean that's a very pretentious way of saying we're a place where we want to help businesses grow.
Sure.
And what we've done is we put together a set of facilities here, like the business lounge that we're sitting in, 120 desk co-working space out the back where you can rent desks on a 30-day rolling contract, a whole series of meeting rooms, boardrooms, private offices. But the big idea behind Republic of Work is that you know, a lot of people, when they look for innovation or when they look for the big idea in their industry, what they're actually looking to do is copy somebody else. Yeah. So when a solicitor's firm is kind of going, right, it's time to up our game, traditionally what they do is they go out and they look at what other solicitor firms are doing.
Yeah, like a pigeon you rob, or magpie you rob, some of this guy robs some of this guy.
But naturally that means that you're very much inside the box, the proverbial box when it comes to thinking. What we figured was if you put a whole pile of different businesses from different industries, and you know the variety of businesses goes from donut shops, health and beauty, biotech, engineering, artists, everything in here. If you put a whole pile of different people from different professions and also at different scales, so you've got the guys who are just getting started, and then you've got like people like the Bank of Ireland crew and the visitors that we get regularly from
here, so
Airbnb and all that.
Off each other,
and then so you put all them in, they're all communicating with each other, and at the same time, as you said, they're all drawing resources off each other, in that a guy who comes in that needs a bit of help with accounting or legal, you know, you can kind of go, well actually, you know what, you're like, instead of you having to go off to do appointments somewhere else, that we actually have somebody like yourself in here to do legals and stuff. So I think we kind of refer to it as, it's kind of like business community 2.0. It's like when you take business, you add in that networking element that everybody talks about. But I mean,
and it's practical,
when it's
real.
Yeah, like when you're in a building with people all day, every day, you can't but help network. So I mean, this sort of shared, flexible work environment is becoming the norm worldwide, because even
it's
within
new to Cork, though, isn't it?
It's very new to Cork. I mean, there's some great. There's a really great space called Plus 10 here in Cork. That was probably the first co-working space in Ireland. Fergus Murphy and the guys over there, like when everybody thought they were absolutely mad, like went to try and do a space, and like they've had some great little businesses come out of there. For us, I mean, we just kind of, it was a different scale for us. I'd seen it, wanted to make it happen, did the whole first most important thing, Googled co-working spaces Cork, see what did anything show, and the first thing that came up was this post on boards.ie from a guy called Pat Phelan. And it was basically, he had posted saying, I'd seen something about this, maybe we should set one of these up in Cork. So I'm instantly thinking, this guy's either going to be my biggest ally or he's going to be my actual nemesis. Ended up getting friendly with Pat. Pat asked me to go work with him in Trustev. This takes us back to the
Trustev story,
so Pat asked me to go work with him in Trustev. And you know what, I was at the time, I was nervous about the idea of starting the space in Cork, because like the recession was just kind of still there, that thing. So I thought, you know what, if I was ever going to go and work in a startup, this was a good time.
But even in particular, the area, the South Mall, like the South Mall kind of went through a few years where a lot of business were moving away from the Mall. A lot of businesses closing down. Like this is predominantly, for those who don't know, you have your banks here, insurance company, auctioneers. It's the heart of the business district.
And the funny thing is that everywhere you go worldwide, like the co-working spaces, the ones that are successful are the ones that are in the heart of the city. If they're kind of out on outskirts and stuff like that, they don't work because they can't feed off the buzz of the city centre. And we went through a part of the decade where that buzz was very much not here in the city centre.
And so, what is Trustev? So just to go back to that.
So Trustev was Pat Phelan. For those of you who don't know about Pat Phelan,
you should follow him on Instagram. Brilliant. You should really.
You will be.
You should.
As I said, you'll be entertained.
The
thing about Pat as an entrepreneur, he's one of the few guys that when you see the term serial entrepreneur, you don't throw up in your mouth a little, right? Because every single business that Pat has ever started has basically been a problem that he saw in the business before. And that goes all the way back to like when he started as a butcher, wanted to see the meat that they were bringing in looked after properly, ended up setting a restaurant, it was a Thai restaurant, wanted to get the best of staff in, ended up setting a recruitment company in Thailand, wanted the staff in the restaurant to be able to communicate back to their families,
So
set up a
he's a
little
problem
telecoms
solver.
company,
Yeah.
and it went on and on and on. And essentially, the reason Trustev got set up was that Pat had been dealing with an awful lot of online businesses that had a huge problem with fraud. So the idea behind Trustev was a very simple one. That when you would be selling something to somebody online, you could be 100% certain of their identity.
Okay.
They built a great company. I stayed with them for about half the journey. At the end of the journey, which was a very long journey, I think it was 3 and a bit years, they sold the company for 43 million.
Wow.
Huge success and the company has grown. Pat has left now, but the company has grown to, I think, about 60 people up at the airport. They were bought by
Cork-based.
Cork-based. They were bought by TransUnion, who have about 20 or 30,000 employees in America. They're the second largest identity bureau in the world.